Hi everybody, I'm talking to you from the middle of the coronavirus experience. So let's go over some of the principles that make an experience like this much easier. Our goal is that this is not only survivable, but thrivable, and I'll explain to you what I mean. First of all, we all know this. We're not always in control of our circumstances. But what we are in control of is who we choose to be in the space of the experience. And that matters because that will ultimately affect what the experience is for us. This whole idea of being told you're just going to have to stay home for a while, where do we go with that? What do we do with that? Particularly when there is so much fear and even borderline, if not full-on panic, that so many people are feeling at this time. Think about a war. Think about how there's the Army and the Navy and the Air Force. Now that is, it's interesting how the patterns of nature mimic themselves in different levels. Because this is very akin to the integrative approach to healing. The Army is the ground troops. The Navy is that which is underneath the surface. And then the Air Force is that which is the spirit above. So what are the ground troops here? The doctors and the nurses and the scientists. And let's just take a moment to, we talk about send good wishes, pray for the troops, God bless the troops. Wow. Just take a moment to think about all of the doctors and nurses, some of whom in certain places have lost their lives, but who all over the world right now are sacrificing, are placing themselves in service at known risk all over the world. And I consider also ground troops the people who are working in places like grocery stores, people who are picking up our garbage, people who can't just, work from home, people who are actually showing up in order to provide us with essential services that we need in order to survive. And also think of some of those people who are showing up at those jobs, not because they want to actually, but because if they don't show up for work, they won't get paid. And until we get some kind of emergency economic relief, which we must do, they don't know how they would put food on their own tables. So a real important issue here is for us to know where there is love, there cannot be fear. Just like where there's light, there cannot be darkness. Darkness is not a thing, it's the absence of a thing. And fear is not a thing, it's the absence of a thing. You fill your mind with love and the fear automatically diminishes. So gratitude and praise are aspects of love. So just send love and gratitude. Really allow yourself to drop into those deeper places within yourself. And deeper places within yourself, by definition, are places where it's not just about you. That's the key. The key to emotionally getting through this experience is being there for other people who have to get through this experience and thinking of the other people who are involved here. So beginning with that, beginning with those ground troops, beginning with the doctors and the scientists and who are working all over this world so hard right now as we speak. And just feeling some gratitude in our hearts. Particularly for those of us who are American, we a lot of times take a lot of things for granted. And we're moving so fast. We become such an ADD culture. We're all moving. And sometimes when we're moving so fast, it's in order to avoid deep reflection. Because we have to face some pain sometimes, some discomfort when we have to reflect deeply. But there's a saying that every problem comes bearing its own solution. And one of the ways in which this problem comes bearing a solution is that it is forcing us, because it's forcing you to stay home. And it's forcing us to think more deeply. I was having earlier today some insight about relationships in my life, personal and professional, connecting them to some childhood issues, relationships with my parents. And I know that breakthrough, which was pretty big, pretty deep for me, was because I didn't have anything to do, except to sit there and think during this particular time. We make it about like going to therapy. We're going to go for an hour on Thursday or whatever, or to a support group. And that's my hour to think deeply about my past or whatever. But this is about a change in lifestyle. We need a change in lifestyle that goes beyond 1 hour here or 1 hour there. Blaise Pascal, the French philosopher, said that all of the problems of the world can can be seen as stemming from mankind's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And then there's the Navy, that which is underneath the surface. That I think of as political leaders, systems analysts, the intellectual component of all this, recognizing what has happened politically that we got here. Some of that's not fun either. Recognizing we could have had testing begun in January, that those tests were available to us from the WHO and that our own leaders turned them down. The Navy is that inner work, the intellectual work, figuring out what the heck happened here. Why is it that we have so starved the beast of government agencies like the CDC, etc., that we would be left so vulnerable, this the most powerful nation in the world, that we had so diminished our commitment to public investment in things that don't turn a short-term profit for anyone at any particular time, but that bolster our strength for just such moments as this. The economists will have to figure out what to do. As I speak to you, the Dow just plunged 3,000 points. This is a big, big deal. And you have 40% of all Americans already who can't afford a $400 unexpected expenditure. That day has come. So there are all these ideas, all these proposals about emergency UBI. Tulsi Gabbard has proposed a bill. Ro Khanna from California and Tim Ryan have proposed a bill. There are a few of them floating out there. All of us need to do our own research, read, go which ones are better. But we all need to accept the idea that we're going to have to give some immediate economic relief to people for whom this period is already a catastrophic possibility on an economic level. Economists, political leaders, systems analysts, that to me is our Navy. And then there's the Air Force. Those who pray, those who are spiritual practitioners, those who meditate. The power of meditation, the power of prayer, the power of spiritual practice. This is a perfect time to forgive people. You might think, how does my forgiving people have anything to do with the dealing with the coronavirus? More than you might think. There have already been profound and very scientifically established studies about the role of spirituality in bolstering the immune system. This is not just some crazy talk. This is not some silly talk. This is scientifically established. Your capacity now to meditate, your capacity now to pray, your capacity to be there for other people in love, communication, connection. All of these things affect our immune system and deepen our ability to move through this without fear and without panic. Fear and panic are not good for your immune system. There's information that we all need to know. There's no doubt about it. There's information that we perhaps need to read. There's information we perhaps need to watch on the news. But you can read it, you can look at it, you can make sure that you are informed and not dwell on it. I was reading an article yesterday, and then at a certain point it was telling me things that did not help me to read. It didn't help me to know it, I so often in working with people who are very ill, there is somebody who has to deeply look at all of that physical analysis. It's called your doctor. You would do better after a certain point concentrating on the things that have to do with the joys of life. The people who have to concentrate on the level of the physical, that's an important issue. But there are also times in our lives where the greatest benefit comes from being concentrated on the things that remain, the loving relationships. There's something about being home and being forced to be home, the self-quarantine. Look around and you think, I haven't cleaned out that closet. I've been telling myself for a year I was going to clean out that closet. I haven't cleaned out that drawer. I've been telling myself forever I was going to clean out that drawer. Clutter in our homes that we know actually affect our energy. Emails you could write, people you could call, who might need my help, who have I failed to write a thank you note to or to call and say thank you. What particularly elderly people might have their day brightened if I call them? Have I checked on my parents? The issue is to fill your inner room with light so that all that darkness of fear and panic cannot set in. So the point here is that we have a lot of control. There's a lot of control we don't have, and there's a lot of control we do have. You are going to be essentially quarantined. It's a kind of enforced house arrest, you know. That's happening. The only way to be conscious, the only way to be conscientious, the only way to live in deep compassion for others right now is to mainly stay home. But you have a choice. We all have a choice. Who we are as we go through this experience. What is the space that you're going to inhabit here? Be aware of ways you could be helpful. You read stories already. I remember the AIDS crisis, and already there were similarities. But we did what we could to show love for each other, to show love for the sufferers, to support. And with love, we got through it. And the people who were working on the medicine and all of that, it was a long time before there was any. We prayed for them. We did what we could in the meantime. But there were all kinds of things we could do. The spiritual support groups. And now the spiritual support groups are happening, but they're happening online. People with Skype and Zoom, all of the ways that we have of reaching out to each other digitally now that we didn't have then. And the message of that moment was, with love, we will get through this. And the scientists will do their work, and the political people will do their work, and the doctors will do their work, and the nurses will do their work. And while they're working so hard, we will do our work too. It's all an integrated approach. There's the Army and the Navy and the Air Force. And we will get through this. And love will prevail. And we can be better people on the other side of this. That's the point about crisis. If this situation is here, dear God, make me a better person because of it. Use this time. I love that line of poetry from Rilke. Let me not squander the hour of my pain. Don't squander this. I know from people who went through the AIDS crisis same time that I did, and people who were on the front lines, when we see each other. I had a boyfriend once who had been, he was a veteran, a Vietnam vet. There was something they shared, Vietnam vets, as I'm sure it's true of Iraqi vets and from Afghanistan, for the veterans share. And I've noticed that with those of us who were present during that horrible time of the AIDS crisis. We went through something together. It was like going through a war together. We're all going through something together. And none of us will ever forget this. But let it be a crisis that does become an opportunity to become better people. And if enough of us do this work, we'll become a better country. That's a really big deal. Have a good night.